The all-clear trades one noise for another. Rain hissing on cold stone, boots crunching glass, a lorry coughing beyond the haze. In Poplar, dawn is a thin smear on brick, and doors open like eyelids after a hard night. Mavis Cook follows the soot-scored tramway where sparks fell, past the tram frozen dumb at the depot gates, past windows with blinds sagging. The street narrows, the cobbles buckle slightly. 4 fins jut from the road, skewed, rain bead bright on gray-green paint. The tail cone is bent, skin slick. She doesn't shout. She steps back, breath held, and lifts her whistle without using it. Noise feels like a threat here. She pulls chalk with a steady hand and bends. The chalk snaps. She uses the stub to draw a pale, wide circle around the tail unit, careful not to graze metal. The ring becomes a boundary between those who will live a little longer and those who might not. Her ARP armband sags with damp. She ties cord and tape from a lamppost to a sandbagged gate. It flutters as warm brick dust ghosts the air. She keeps her voice low at the first door. Her knock is flat-palmed, damping sound. An old man opens with a teacup trembling in his fingers. Porridge cools on a table behind him. A canary in a cage hangs at the window, feathers fluffed, eyes bright as pins. ARP, come with me, she says, and he sets the cup down too fast. It clinks against the saucer. She keeps orders simple. Coat, scarf, shoes, leave the pot, leave the clock, take the child's blanket. She doesn't explain the fins. She doesn't say the street might be counting down. She moves door to door, collecting faces. A mother with a pram that still smells of soap, a boy who wants his cricket bat, a couple in Sunday, best by habit. She writes names, Lewis, Deshmukh, Hargreaves, on cards that go soft at the edges in the wet. Systems are nets you throw into chaos. Each time the wind lifts the tape, she looks back at the fins as if they had twitched. The tram line shining at the end of the street is both escape and wire. Vibration could travel it like a fuse. She widens the perimeter in her head, then with tape. Her skin knows what the map won't say. A figure arrives at the cordon with purpose, boots set down lightly. Sergeant Arthur Hale's coat is shapeless in the wet. His hands are bare despite the cold because touch tells truth. His face gives nothing back. Stubble, a closed mouth, a fine chalky scar on his chin. 2 men are with him, one older, one young, shoulders bunched against the drizzle. They carry a canvas roll that clinks softly. Plumber's sounds for a different trade. Hale stops at the chalk circle and lowers his eyes to the angle of fins, the paint tone, the abraded stripe near the tail. He crouches, fingers hovering but not touching. SC-50, he says low. Thin casing, integrated tail, nose likely heavy. He traces the shallow scar pointing toward the north curb. Shallow berry, nose down. It's a diagnosis, not a guess. Leading aircraftman Owen Pike holds a notebook like ballast. He scribbles as Hale dictates in clipped notes, fin cant and spin rate, paint mat gray-green, probable nose fuse. Numbers like prayers, 17, 17B, maybe 28. Rain combs his lashes. Gray-green, sir, he says. Luftwaffe, RLM-2, I think. He doesn't know if it matters, but noticing might keep a man breathing. Hale unrolls the canvas. Tools have no shine. Brass spanners, screwdrivers, drift, brush. No sparks. He sets them out blind by habit. He takes a bayonet reshaped as a probe and sinks it into the seam between cobbles, tenderness in his hand that makes Pike flush. The steel slides through grit and ash. Touch maps what eyes cannot see. He finds casing just under the surface, weight forward, nose bitten and halted because the street was enough. The probe taps steel, the click writes itself on every nerve. He withdraws the bayonet slowly. Gray-green paint smears the steel, a whisper of rust browns the edge. The air shrinks around them, quiet turning hard. He brushes a little soil aside with the backs of his fingers. A thin crack shows between nose and world. no hiss, no tick. If there's a clock, it keeps secrets. He thinks of a celluloid disc dissolving in acetone, of steel parts priming each other in the dark. He thinks about a fortnight ago on a different street when a Finn lied, and a man who whistled through his work stopped mid-breath. He swallows that and says only what matters. Mavis guides an elderly couple past the sandbags, her hand under the woman's elbow, her eyes always drifting back to the sullen metal. The church hall 2 corners away has its crypt open, benches laid out by men with big hands and tired eyes. She tells the young mother with the pram to take the back mews, not the tram line. The woman starts to argue because straight feels safe. Mavis drops her voice flat. The rails will bring the street into your bones. The woman turns without another word. Hale measures angles. Fins clawed at the edges, cobbles with a smear north, tail just proud of the surface, like a breath. SC 50, 50 kilograms, thin skin that peels. The nose fuse at the front, several types, some for giving neither haste nor patience. Numbers again, 17, 17B, 25, 28, and each a different ending. He doesn't share those. He tells Pike, shallow impact, low angle, probable nose fuse, intact. They expand the caution circle without drama. Mavis moves tape past the corner shop with open chalked in cheerful lies. The canary swings in her mind, its cage in the window, delicate frame tougher than most men. Each lorry on the main road will set that hook tapping. She flags a constable and says, stop the lorries at the far corner. He says, people need coal. People need their lungs inside, she says, even, and he plods off to plant himself in the road. Hale takes from his pocket an old ivory watch and sets it near the bomb's belly. Not to time the fuse, to measure himself against indifference. The second hand ticks with idiot calm. He brushes away rain-dark clay at the nose and reveals stamped numerals in a font that feels like an order. German. They speak for factories. Pike leans in, whispering the numbers like a lesson he can pass. The city moves damp and slow. Doors thud, footsteps pull back from the pale halo, voices drop like in church. The depot tram sighs, the rails hum, and then go dead. Quiet is not comfort. Quiet amplifies error. Hale sends the older sapper for timber. They will need a tripod and a block and tackle, a lift without shock. The older man nods and goes, boots careful on slick cobbles. Mavis checks the utilities map taped inside the ARP box. It's tidy nonsense in parts. Lines are straight on paper. Under this street, a water main hisses like a kettle. She kneels at the chalk edge and puts her palm flat. A thin, constant whisper. It might be a pipe or her nerves. There is no spare for guessing wrong. She sends a boy in a cap, too happy to be useful, to the utilities office for confirmation and to a road crew for sandbags. She keeps herself outside the chalk. The drizzle thickens. Clay pasted dust turns to paste. London slumps at a whisper. Hale curses mildly and tells Pike to fetch Hessian sacks. The trench will need dressing. Pike nods too hard, glad to move. Keep an eye on the junction, Hale adds. Wave off anything heavier than a cart. Orders are ladders out of fear. A trolley of sandbags arrives from the shelter. Hale guides with a finger, not a shout. They raise a low breastwork along the trench line, not against blast, but to hold shape and footing. Mavis spreads Hessian in the wet, so knees won't skate when Clay turns to oil. The boy in the cap returns, bright-eyed, with news. The water main runs under the side street at 3 feet, a hollow under the bomb's nose. The thought sets in Mavis like a stone. Hale crouches, brushing soil from the nose with a clothes brush. Dirt cakes his nails. Pike hoods a torch with his hand. The beam picks out part numbers, ugly little truths. Hale angles the light and finds a maker's stamp. His breath fogs on metal. He sees himself blurred in a drip of water. He reaches for a brass spanner that would take the fuse ring, if anything will. A tram clatters 2 streets off, someone missing the memo. The rails sing. A puddle near the bomb ripples twice and stills. In the window 2 doors down, the canary cage bobs. No bird. Everyone nearby goes still anyway. Hale holds the spanner half an inch from metal. He watches the puddle's skin flatten. He listens. Nothing changes. He places the spanner down on hessian, not steel. He consults for courtesy. The field telephone snakes to the ARP post. The line is a scratched thread. A voice at HQ answers heavy with sleep and diagrams. Impact nose, likely 17, Hale says. Low angle, gray-green paint. Stamps. If delay present, do not spike. Isolate. Consider lift, the voice says. Consider hangs in the rain. The line crackles, breathes once, dies. The little dead click is final. No more diagrams. Hale keeps his hand on the handset a beat longer than sense would require, and lets go. He has been without aid before. The choice sits heavy. Unthread a thing designed to punish hands, or hook it and move death to a better patch of dirt. He doesn't have to do either yet. Minutes melt in rain. He studies the ring around the fuse pocket, the smear of paint, the slight warp from landing. He thinks if he can ease the ring he can see. If he can see he can know. If he can know, he can live. He signals Pike. Log weather, time, temperature, tremors. Neatness is a refuge and a promise. The church bell at the hall knocks twice, shudders and shelter. Mavis moves the infirm first, then mothers, then the rest. She places the boy with the cap at the corner to wave red at anything heavy. He nods with an ignorance perfect for courage. Mavis looks at the bead of rain trembling on metal, at the chalk scuffed by 1,000 small decisions. She steps the tape back again. The street keeps telling her it is larger than she wants to admit. Hale shaves the trench with a razor's care. Clay slicks. Timber along the sides, he says. Sure as we go. The older sapper returns with damp-smelling joists and rope. They knock a tripod together, legs spread, block and tackle hanging idle, rope darkening with rain. He may not use it. Knowing he can is oxygen. Test the pulley, he says. Listen for fiber singing. The main below gives a groan. Mavis watches water loosen and slide in the gutter. Clay near the nose darkens into slick. Hale feels it in his hand without looking. He lifts his brush and holds still. Pike holds breath and then remembers, inhales through his nose to keep fog off steel. Hale wipes a thin lip clean. There, under the ring's edge, tiny stamped numerals swagger in a German font. He whispers the number that matters. Pike writes it like it weighs something. A siren coughs once for a test. It isn't night yet, but time's surface buckles. Hale sets the spanner on the ring. Brass teeth kiss metal. He won't heave. He won't hope. He'll persuade. The fit is imperfect. Good enough. He seats, left hand bleeding tremor, right on the arm. Grit lives in threads when steel has been ground or clay has crept. He expects grit. He doesn't expect slickness. The cage 2 doors down vibrates when a cart on the main road hits a rut. The wire wavering marks the ground's heartbeat. Mavis sends a runner to hold traffic farther out. She instructs in plain terms, halt, explain why. He runs like a boy saving lives. In the hall, blankets smell of old winter. Ordinary and extraordinary sit side by side, but never touch. She has metal in her mouth. She swallows it. Hale glances up at the hoist. Rope creaks. Timber lines up against sullen sky. Lift versus defuse, different deaths down different paths. He decides, see first, choose after. He turns a fraction. Grit whispers down his bones. Rain glistens like oil. The chalk ring pales where it is wet. The watch by the belly ticks on, brainless. Clay ridges rise against timber. A worm appears, withdraws. Pike watches Hale's hand and thinks about tidy diagrams that don't include rain. He wants to be the kind of man whose hands match clean thinking. Metal answers in a wordless way, slick where it shouldn't be. Hale wipes fingers on wool, and the smell comes up faint. Solvent. He brings the spanner back and sees at the thread a proud, dark bead. It swells, then a thin fluid wicks into clay, writing itself in black. Pike's stomach tightens. Hale's voice drops to bone. Wait and fuse. No one touches anything until I say. Waiting fuse. No one touches anything until I say. The morning is tin-colored. The fins point like a crooked finger. Rain beads and clings. A thread of smoke from a stovetop flattens in damp air. Every noise is evidence. Distant engine, kettle lid ticking, people gathering coats in doorways. All of it a risk. Mavis steps the tape out again, brisk and without theater. When a tram hits an unsealed joint 2 streets over, a puddle rings. The message is in the water. She shoves the line back. Rails carry trouble. The canary cage quivers. Feather dust drifts. She muses about moving the cage with a broom if no one will. She's already flagged the constable. Stop the tram. She gives the mother with the pram the truth in a small spoon. Round the back, not the rails. She stops explaining because explanation is a vibration too. Hale watches the oily bead grow. The smell is pear-drop thin and wrong. 17 series. Celluloid disc dissolving in acetone. No click, no tick, just surrender, and a spring. Time exists. Its measure won't admit itself. He pulls back a hair. The droplet lengthens. Clay under the wall slumps. Pike's boot slides. Hale catches his belt. They stay human by inches. The water main whispers under the road. Hale and Pike press palms to the cobbles, feeling for the city's purr. There it is. The rail's long string hum. The cage swings on its hook. The perimeter is wrong by yards. He pulls his hand from the spanner. First instinct was to force silence with a spike. Delay, fuse punishes force. Lift, rope, timber, friction, jolt. Unscrew? Threads brittle with impact and solvent. He chooses a third thing for now. Take up slack on the hoist to softly cradle weight, then try to see. He signals Pike to tension the line to a hum, no more. The decision sits with him like metal. Mavis pushes people toward the hall, a school basement, a neighbor's parlor, but pushes them away from doors that shiver at each distant wheel. A butcher argues over meat turning warm. She wants to snap. She points at the puddle rings and the canary cage. "Those are your clocks," she says. He stops arguing. She expands the cordon without waiting to be told. The boy with the cap stands in the rain at the far corner, red flag limp in his hand, chin up. Hale braces on his haunches. "No lift yet," he decides aloud, clear enough to anchor the team. "We shore. We sling for support only. We unscrew slow. If she argues, we stop." The rope creaks as if it has a vote. He accepts the argument and goes on. Rain sharpens. Clay slicks. The trench wall slithers down in a grin of mud. Pike catches himself. "Steady," Hale says, a word that is both instruction and hope. Timbers go in and wedge. Hessian sags. Mavis keeps the curious at the tape with a look that shames them into sense. She notes the names of those who have gone to the crypt and which doors now stand empty. The street is a ledger. Hale wipes more clay from a ring of numbers, German crisp inside utilitarian steel. He sees the smear line where the nose skated, the angle that says delay, likely. The phone line to HQ hisses, coughs, dies. It's memory then. He thinks of a draft room where a clever man drew a trap. He does not permit the thought to dwell. He sets the brass spanner into the ring again. The tripod's hook hangs a handbreadth off the belly, hemp ready. "Just a shade," he tells Pike. Pike leans on the tackle as if coaxing a sleepy child. The rope fibers sing a note. A tram rumble arrives a beat late, then fades. The puddle rings, flatten. Hale turns less than thought. Grit crumbles like sugar. He freezes. Brittle, he says to the air, and the risk moves in closer. Mavis returns with a warden from 3 streets over. More names are checked off in the crypt. 3 moved, she reports. 1 to Bow. Hale nods. Good. Push back farther. Halt the tram. Word's gone, she says. Some lorries won't listen. The canary feather on the cage wire lifts, resettles. She resists looking up again. Looking up doesn't move a thing. Hale watches the oily wheat bead along the thread. He remembers the file card in training that didn't show rain or grit. He hears a matchless fizz under clay. You can't hear the clock, he had told new lads. Now doubt has volume. He looks at Pike. When I say, slack a whisper. If I say, drop, let go, and run. Pike nods, unsteady and resolved. There is nothing else to be. He eases pressure. Burrs and Nix argue. The acetone eats at celluloid in its glass cradle. Temperature matters. Cold rain plays its own trick. A single drop slides down the thread and stains clay. The smell sharpens beneath coal smoke. Hale's turn is a breath. The ring gives a fraction. The branch in the plan grows as real as rope. Mavis edges a neighbor back from his threshold. Habit makes a man walk to his own step. She taps the canary cage with a broom through the letterbox, pushing it farther from glass. The hook squeaks. Watch that, she says, and even the man understands. She looks at the church tower and notes the hour without meaning to. A note from the ARP post reaches her. Curfew waiver until 4:30. Time becomes a plank to crawl along. Hale hears softness in the fizz that says the solvent has nearly done its job. That can be blessing or trap. Wooden drift, he says. Pike hands a swan-necked length with a flattened end. Hale eases it against the ring and taps with the heel of his hand. He reads the knock. The ring holds for now. He believes it for 30 seconds. He tries again. The ring moves a hair more. The hoist groans. The main hisses. Keep that line like a violin, he says. The rope steadies under Pike's hands. Clay slumps again in slow-motion seduction. A sack slides and kisses steel. Everyone freezes. Nothing answers. We shore again after, Hale says. One more turn. He hears himself, and the memory of a funeral folds into the back of his mind. He rocks the spanner gently, a locksmith's patience. Inside, a plate scrapes, then finds a better stance. The ridge softens. The ring yields a sliver. He doesn't smile. The smell of solvent is stronger, clean and cruel. Laughter lifts behind a sandbag, nerves misfiring, and stops under an older woman's stare. Mavis keeps people's eyes away from the trench with errands that are simply distance. Sergeant, Pike says. The oily weep at the thread thickens. A seam of brownish slurry shows along the edge. Hale nods. Dissolving disc pushing into the train. A coin flips inside a pipe. His hands feel heavier. He keeps at it because stopping now would let fear take the reins. Turn, rest, turn, listen. The thread clears the damaged bite. The wrench eases. The ring rides up invisibly. He is one turn and change from free. We're there, he says, not triumphant, a tightening of focus. Pike adjusts the hoist a notch. The rope drops a note. Hale hates that sound and uses it anyway. The water main hisses hard, then stops, then hisses again. Omen or plumbing. He doesn't look at the sky. His world is inches wide. He picks the next notches and pulls. The ring comes easy. He catches it before it drops and sets it on Hessian in mud like laying down a living thing. The fuse beneath is short, mean, practical. The gain housing shows. The screws no one ever touches show. He must decide, withdraw whole, or try to disarm in place. He chooses the first. He won't gamble with inner teeth. The fuse extractor, brass jaws, seats around the body. Line steady, he says. Pike's jaw clenches and obeys. Hale turns, movement smaller than belief. The fuse resists, then gives a 16th. Do not breathe, he says, and knows he is lying to himself. The street obeys. Mavis watches the muscles in Hale's hands, thumbs placed to catch a truth if it jumps. The canary feather comes loose and floats in a slow eddy. The water under the road falls silent, as if listening. The fuse moves another hair. Coming, Hale whispers, and despises the optimism of words. A soft click inside. Not crack, not detonation. Something relaxing or aligning. He doesn't trust either. He turns again. Metal plays smoother, a fraction out. Threads shine. Silt lines them like patient dirt. Easy, he tells the fuse as if it had ears. He draws it free enough that if the gain meant to bite, it would have. He thinks of a widow's gloves. He pulls it clear. Pike takes the fuse with both hands and lowers it into a sand bucket. The sand skin breaks around it. Hale doesn't move until it is down. Then he moves fast enough to eye the fuse well. Dark, threads true, no remnant catching. Detonator? Pike whispers. No, Hale says. The street is a wire stretched between relief and stupidity. They rig the sling properly now. The next danger is mundane, a bump. The tripod takes weight. Rope sighs. Timber complains. On my mark, Hale says. The bomb's nose eases from clay, the earth sucking at it. The hole shows the roads underneath. Slag, stones, a bottleneck. The load swings a handbreadth. It behaves. To the lorry, Hale says. The sandbed truck waits. They move in 5-pace bites, the bomb hovering 8 inches above ground. They set it down into sand. A fog of breath rises. Mavis unclenches her jaw only when she hears wood settle. Pike covers the fuse bucket with more sand. The Hessian piles sway and still. Hale wipes his palms on stained trousers. Disposal pit, he says. Work isn't done until the thing is gone. The lorry engine coughs alive, a sound that would have sent hearts racing an hour ago and now sounds like relief. They move slow. Every bump is telegraphed into the bed through rope and sand and practice. Mavis walks alongside, ushering eyes back and feet away. The cordon opens. The street shuts its mouth. Hale looks once at the chalk-scrubbed crater and the hanging cage. He thinks of the houses he didn't have to visit. They take the tramway a few yards and then turn toward a patch behind a half-demolished warehouse where sand and water can eat sound. The pit is shallow and wide, like a grave that refuses bodies. They lay the bomb in with delicacy. Charges go in as they have a dozen other mornings. Lines run back. Hale checks. He considers dusk. The sirens will own the sky soon. Back, he says. Pike kneels and clips firing cable to plunger in an ARP box borrowed for a sacrament. He glances up like an apprentice. Hale checks and nods. On my count, 3. He raises the handle. 2. Somewhere a siren chooses not to test its throat. 1. He brings the handle down. The ground lifts itself with a dull, honest thump. Sand and water drink the sound and give back steam. Mavis feels it in her shoes, a handshake, not a slap. Pike flinches and grins, looking at his hands as if they've remained. Hale watches steam and counts to 20. Sometimes shrapnel has afterthoughts. When the air settles, the pit is a bowl of mud, fins somewhere else, body gone to physics. The hiss of the water main is absent here. Rain and the last feathers of steam fill the air. They roll back as afternoon thins. The lorry spills sand from what it carried of their fear. The chalk in the street washes to a blur. The tripod stands like a gallows awaiting demolition. Tools go back into oily cloth. People tilt back to thresholds, cheeks pink with air and relief and something like embarrassment for fear. Mavis stands in a doorway and speaks names, checks her cards because paper gets the living and the dead to agree. Someone offers tea, someone offers a mutter. The cage comes in. The yellow feather on the wire has gone. Hale toes the trench edge, not to kick, just to mark the place. He thinks of acetone dissolving a wafer, of moisture misaligning expectation, of how angle and a smear told the truth when the phone died. He had chosen not to lift. He had lifted later. "Why didn't it go off when it hit?" Pike asks, very soft. Hale looks at a boy smaller than his tools and bigger than fear. "Because some men designed a quiet that kills," he says, "and here's fatigue in it." The tram line takes its first wait, gentle as a man stepping back into a room he loves. The driver's cap sits at a new angle, someone who now knows a street by feel. Mavis lifts the tape and lets it fall. It snaps and dies. She tastes salt and coal dust. She hadn't known she'd been crying. Dusk comes early when the day spent itself. Blocks inhale the last of the light. The clay cools, contracts, cracks. Steam lifts in threads. The tripod comes down, wood knocking wood like apologies. Someone finds a penny in mud and holds it up. The man offers it to Pike. Pike pockets it without a joke. "For luck," the man says. Hale presses his boot into the divots where the hoist legs stood. He looks at windows lit dim behind blackout curtains. Arms ache. A lightness arrives only after the choice stayed in its lane. The rain ticks, then stops. The sand in the lorry holds a memory shape that will slump into a hill by morning. He thinks about the report he'll write with words that won't convey a fizz under clay or the way the ring tried not to come. The church bell stirs once, not to call, just to mark. Rails deny an incoming, then change their mind. A feather, not the canary's now, but a pigeon's, falls and catches a puff of steam. It lifts and turns once before dropping near the saucer of tamped mud where the bomb had been. Mavis checks her cards one last time and tucks them away. Pike coils the firing cable into a figure eight because neatness is a hedge. Hale glances at the spot where tail fins had made a weather vane. Steam threads thin. The first engine notes drift over the river. The street empties. The tape is gone. Tools are bundled. The last memory is a rope mark on damp brick. The first forgetting is a lamp behind felt. In the road, the shallow wound shines. It will take a tire and be just a bump tomorrow. A single yellow feather, sticky with drizzle, lifts from stone on a warm eddy and drifts the length of the street, turning slowly as the siren starts and a new decision gathers.